Alright, welcome back to the channel. As you can see, I have the 88 CRX project pulled back in the garage. It's been sitting out there under that cover for several weeks now. I've been kind of at a standstill on that as I've been working on the S2000, and we had Classic Hunters on the Dragon with this car. But we are going to get back into this today or tonight, as I may say. It's actually not too late in the day, but it is pitch black outside. So what we're going to end up doing on this car is just continuing the disassembly of it, taking these doors off. They're in pretty bad shape. I've got some replacement doors over here that we are going to work on. We're going to take those apart. They're going to have to be prepped just like the car is for paint. But I'm going to hold off on the engine right now because it's nice having this thing running so I can pull it in and out of the garage, as I do keep the S2000 in here to keep it out of the weather. So you haven't been seeing me work on this car because I've been kind of setting it aside because I really didn't know the path forward on it. I didn't know what I wanted to do next, whether to get this thing set up on jack stands, start tearing the suspension off, redoing that, pulling the engine, or cleaning the engine bay up, rebuilding the engine. Well, not rebuilding the engine, but just refreshing the engine, or really getting the interior complete. I really don't know what the best order of operations is on this, so I'm going to continue just pulling it apart, getting the doors off of there, the hatch, take it off of there, just getting everything ready, because I am going to have to paint the door jambs and the hatch jambs as well, because that seam sealer back there has been cracked, and I really can't get away with just painting the exterior like I did on this car here. So let's go ahead and jump into this car and start pulling some more stuff off of it. That is nearly impossible to get off without breaking. Okay, before I unbolt the door hinges from the car, you want to knock this pin out here, because this actually keeps the door from swinging too far open, and it is attached to both ends, so it'll keep you from taking the door off. So you just hit it from the bottom, pop that pin out. Alright, one thing I just figured out is there is not a plug like the door where you can just disconnect this wiring harness with the wiper and the third brake light up here. So I'm going to have to, luckily I was able to get this thing lifted up, and I got a piece of wood holding it up. But I'm going to have to take some of this trim off and disconnect these plugs at the tail light and the wiper and see if I can fish this wiring harness out of the actual hatch to get it off the car. Alright, it is the next day here. I did get the car pulled out last night. I didn't get a lot done on it, not as much as I was wanting to get done. I kind of struggled with the hatch, getting it off of there by myself, as well as getting the wiring harness off of there. I thought I had to fish the wiring harness out of the hatch itself, but it turns out there's a plug inside of the quarter panel that you unplug and you fish it up through the quarter panel, and then the wiring harness goes with the hatch. So I really struggled with that for a while. I didn't show it on camera. But I did get it off of there, and so that's a good thing. But because of that, I think I'm going to go ahead and move toward cleaning up some of these interior panels. I've got some interior panels that I picked up from a friend, but they have sun fade on them, and so I think I've got a little trick that will restore those. I'm going to go ahead and dig them out of this pile of parts over here, bring them over here to the side, try to get them cleaned up and looking nicer. That way we can get them put in the car, because I think I want to go ahead and put some of that stuff inside the car to get it out of the garage and just leave it in the car. I think I can mask that stuff off where painting the door jambs and the hatch jamb won't affect that. So let's go ahead and get these parts pulled out. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do is just use a little bit of all-purpose cleaner and just give this thing a good wipe down. Get this speaker cover off of here because we're not going to use it right now. We're just worried about the hard plastic. We will have to do something about this faded grill, but I'm not going to do that today. Okay, now that I've got the plastics all clean and dry, there's a couple different methods I can use to bring back some of the color of this plastic. Now, I'm not going to be going for a black because originally this wasn't black. It's considered like an off black, but now it's more of a It's a real chalky color now, but I'm hoping to get just kind of a dark gray color, kind of like the spots down here where the sun wasn't hitting it and it didn't fade so bad. So the first method that a lot of you may already know about is the heat gun method. You basically take a heat gun real close to the plastic and melt that top layer of plastic, and that'll bring back the color. But if you're not careful, it'll get really shiny and you'll actually melt into the plastic and it'll look not uniform. It won't have the same color. So I'm going to try to not do that right now. I'm going to try a different approach. I've already tested out a little spot back here and it seems to do okay. And if I'm happy with it, I'll leave it like that. If I'm not, I may try the heat gun approach. So the first method is actually going to be to take some gray scuff pad and kind of scuff off some of this chalky finish on the surface. And it's really just not really meaning to sand down into the plastic. It's really just kind of getting rid of that top layer of chalky sun-dried plastic. And I'll also, after I do that, I'll wipe it down and spray it off and wipe it. Okay, now that I've got this scuffed down with the gray scuff pad, it got rid of that top layer of chalky finish that I was talking about. It's still a little bit in the cracks and crevices, but I'm not going to worry too much about that. The next step is going to be to wipe this down. I'm going to clean it off a little bit, and then I'm going to show you some product that I'm going to use that should bring back the finish closer to its original. It's not going to be perfect, but it should be acceptable. Okay, the product I'm going to use is called CRX Refinish Restorer. It's actually for just any kind of hard plastic or trim pieces that have faded with the sun fade. I've used this stuff on the exterior of my car, on the lower bumper that's not painted. It's just the raw plastic. It seems to hold up a really long time and it does bring back a lot of color. So let's go ahead and give this a shot right here. This stuff smells like wood stain, so I bet it's a similar type of product as a wood stain. So I'm just going to rub it on the plastic. And this stuff does dry like a hard shell coating, so you want to make sure that you apply it evenly and that you do wipe it off and buff it off before it completely dries. Alright, I'm going to move to a spot right here and I'm going to try to do a 50-50 comparison just to show you the difference that it makes. Okay, as you can see, it's a pretty big difference between the untreated plastic and then the treated plastic. This will cure to a hard surface, and you can actually apply more than one coat if you need to. But I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. You can tell how chalky it is here and how much better it looks right there. It's not perfect. I mean, there is still some discoloration underneath here, but I mean that's pretty good considering the age of this and the amount of sun damage that it actually has. So I'm going to go ahead and continue what I was doing across the whole piece of plastic here and get this thing finished up. Alright, well I pulled the car in. I was going to put these rear plastic panels back in there, but I got to looking and it's not going to be a good idea because we're going to have to paint the door jambs here, and those plastic panels actually wrap around part of this door jamb, so it doesn't make sense to put it in there yet. I'm going to have to pull some of this other trim off the door as well, and all that plastic wraps around this. So we're not going to put that in the car. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I'm pretty happy with how these turned out. They look a million times better than what they did look like. They're not perfect. I didn't expect them to be perfect because that stuff, it doesn't work miracles, but it does really improve the overall appearance of the plastic. So you can see a little bit of discoloration here. It's pretty minor. I don't think you're really going to notice once you get it in the car. It's pretty difficult to see these areas anyway. So I'm happy with how these turned out, like I said. So we'll put these in at a later date, probably after we get done painting the door jambs and the rear hatch jamb. We'll go ahead and throw some of that interior back in the car because I'm running out of room in the garage. As you can see, I've got parts all over this area, the part that I use for my gym. Got a hood over there, I've got doors, spoilers, sunroof, taillights, wheels. This whole wall is just full of parts, so I'm really trying to figure out a way to consolidate some of this stuff and get it out of my way, as well as keep progressing on this car. So I'm going to wrap it up here, and we'll catch you in the next video, and hopefully we're going to keep moving along on this.